Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Please be seated. Secretary Conference.
Thank you. Mr. President and Conference, we're moving now to the tributes to those who are seeking permission to retire. And as we do that, I want to say a warm welcome to those who are joining us for this open session of the conference, whether you're here in person or whether you're joining us online. Mr. President, as we said earlier, those who are members of the representative session may have noticed that we will have in that session an opportunity to pray for those who are retiring, but we've moved the retirement tributes to this session of the conference for reasons of time. We want to give time to this, and in this session of the conference we can do that without pressure. But please do note that this is an open session. We have 6 names before us, sir. Sharon Connor, Alan Craig, Eleanor Hayden, Jackie McNair, Sar Yambasu, and yourself, Sir Alan Wardlow. It is our tradition, as you know, to hear tributes to each one, and we will do that and share in those tributes before moving to the formal business in which the DSs will ask the conference for permission to retire. And as we did before, when we get to that business, we've asked Reverend Philip Corrigan as incoming DS to move the resolutions from the North Western District. So, sir, perhaps you'd like to invite the first.
So our first tribute is to the Reverend Sharon Connor, and I want to ask my circuit colleague, Reverend Darren Thompson, to come and bring that tribute.
You all can't see what I see. There's a big picture of Sharon just in front of me here on a little screen on the lectern. Mr. President, it's an absolute privilege for me to have been asked to deliver this tribute to Sharon Connor. Let me just find where she is in the midst. There she is in the middle there, right in front of me. Sharon is just more than a colleague to me. She's a friend and quite simply was a wonderful neighbour as well for 4 years. I'm not sure there are many ministers in our connection who have found themselves in quite the same situation as we previously did on the Portadown circuit, where 2 ministers and their families live side by side in 33 and 35 Thomas Street. You can imagine that arrangement could go one of 2 ways. After all, who really wants to see their colleague every single day? You got there in the end, folks. But for me, it was a blessing to spend 4 years living next to Sharon and to Billy, Darcy and Shane. But I've known Sharon a lot longer than just being stationed together on the Portadown circuit. I first met Sharon when we were at Edge Hill College. I was a first-year student while Sharon was in her final year. East Antrim people naturally gravitate toward one another. County Antrim always sticks together, although I had to overlook the fact she was from Carrick and I was from Larne, but we just have to accept that in life, don't we? One of my earliest memories of Sharon actually comes from a college Bible study. And each student had been assigned a psalm to lead in that semester, and I was kind of dipping in and out because I was at Union at the time. But I remember Sharon being the first person I ever heard use the phrase chiastic structure. My immediate thought was that, goodness, Sharon is incredibly clever. I'll never be able to lead a Bible study like Sharon. And I've still never used the term chiastic structure in my ministry. Sorry, Janet, for that. A few years later, while I was then a final year student at Edge Hill, Sharon came back to speak to us about the joys, challenges and occasional chaos of circuit life when she was stationed to the Tandragee circuit. What stayed with me was not just Sharon's humour, but the picture she painted of ministry as something that is incredibly demanding and yet at the same time deeply rewarding. And I remember her advice was very simple that day. It was stay close to Jesus and you'll be all right. It was advice then, and it remains good advice to this day. In 2018, Sharon moved from the Tandragee and Rich Hill circuit to the Portadown circuit, and she was absolutely delighted when then I was moved to the Portadown circuit a year later in 2019. Through her ministry in Battle Hill, Epworth and Mahon, Sharon made a tremendous impact on our circuit. Her faithful preaching, pastoral care, and deep love for God's people are still remembered with gratitude by those whom she served and who still ask about her on a weekly basis. She always went above and beyond to ensure people knew not only that God cared for them, but that their minister cared for them as well in Jesus' name. During the COVID years, Sharon and I shared some online gatherings together for our people. I still have a vivid memory, Sharon, of you and me and Billy standing in Thomas Street Church trying to work Zoom for a Holy Communion during a Holy Week service, whilst trying to socially distance with masks on, and the whole thing was just chaos. But I think we had a service in the end, somewhere in there. We all remember those years as being challenging for everyone during COVID. I wasn't yet married, I was on my own in number 35, and having neighbours like Sharon and Billy and their family next door was a real gift. When much of ministry had been reduced to phone calls and screens, Sharon probably has no idea just how much encouragement she provided to this minister through weekly conversations over the hedge as we clap for carers. I was personally devastated when stationing decided to move Sharon to Hollywood in 2023, although it was clearly the right time for a new challenge. In Hollywood, Sharon has gone through seasons of deep personal loss with her mother and father, both passing in this time. Sharon has continued, though, through it all to serve God and his people with faithfulness, with resilience, and with a deep well of grace. Over the past 12 years, Sharon Connor has been an outstanding Methodist minister. She has served this connection with integrity, compassion, and unwavering commitment to Christ and to his church. It somehow feels fitting that Sharon and I were the last two ministers to live at 33 and 35 Thomas Street. I cannot imagine that any other ministers over the years had quite as much crack, friendship, and shared experience, Sharon, as we did in those years together. Of course, no tribute to Sharon would be complete without paying tribute to Billy, her husband. He has been her constant support through every season of ministry, and whenever a serious moment or a difficult moment arose in church life, you could always depend on Billy to say the completely inappropriate thing and to leave Sharon go into accident and emergency for a bad heart. As Sharon steps into retirement, her passion for Jesus will not diminish. If anything, it will burn even brighter in this new season. So retirement may mark the end, Sharon, of an active itinerant ministry, but it does not mark the end of discipleship, service, friendship, or influence. So Sharon, I thank you for your ministry to our church, to our connection. I thank you for your friendship, your encouragement, your faithfulness, and for being such a blessing to many of us. And may God richly bless you and Billy in the years ahead. Thank you.
Our next tribute is to the Reverend Alan Craig, and the Reverend Gary Miller will be bringing the tribute, and it will be online. We'll see it on the screen, so hopefully coming up shortly.
Whenever you hear the name Alan Craig, you may well have a smile, thinking of his slightly off-the-wall sense of humour, his quick wit, or perhaps his legendary habit of sending a horse's head to those who may have transgressed in some shape or form. You may even think, oh, what's he up to now? To some folks, Alan may seem to be outspoken, different, a little unusual to be a Methodist minister. And that assessment is 100% correct and would be backed up by Alan's own thoughts on the matter. But to look only at his unique attributes is to completely miss the solid, invaluable asset that he is to the kingdom of God through the Methodist Church in Ireland. To truly know Alan is to understand the meaning of the word steadfast. Alan's life journey tells of an upright man of absolute integrity. In the early days of my relationship with Ruth and him and the family, he literally stood in the gap and he protected our community in one of the most challenging places in Northern Ireland anyone could serve in uniform. If you know him as Skippy, then the chances are that you are one of that band of brave men and women who have been through some harrowing experiences that Alan also went through in those years. And I want to acknowledge and I want to salute that daily sacrifice that Alan made and that still affects him and so many of his comrades from those days. Thank you. Alan proudly wore a cap badge with the motto Quis separabit, taken from Romans 8:35. Quis nos separabit a caritate Christi. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Like Titus was to Paul, Alan has lived his entire Christian walk and his ordained ministry as a vibrant trophy of God's grace and love. His heart burns to share that love. And whether he was navigating the Dublin bus run, driving 40-foot articulated tankers, working security in shopping malls, or defending the innocent, Alan's grasp of justice has always been crystal clear and laser focused. Guided by the words of Colossians, he has worked willingly as if working for the Lord. He has never been afraid to speak truth to power, and his desire to be lovingly and robustly sharing his faith has always burned bright. Since 2014, Alan's stationing has left an indelible mark across the circuits where he's served in Bangor, Lagan Valley, Trinity, Glenburn, and in every single appointment he brought a fresh, innovative vision for the social gospel. In true Methodist fashion, he won ordinary people over by not just preaching it, but by living it out loud in the community. In recent years, and in the face of challenges and obstacles that were put in his path, Alan's living faith never wavered. He brought the light of the gospel directly into homes through online broadcasts and deeply faithful pastoral care. His physical presence, his strength, his warmth, and his inquiring mind have been a lifeline to his closest friends and an undeniable blessing to everyone he's been called to serve. As John O'Donoghue said, a friend is a loved one who awakens your life in order to free the wild possibilities within you. Well, Alan Craig challenges me and others to that extent every day. And it's hard for me to imagine our church community without Alan's physical presence here. From support given to colleagues in distress, to his quietest and devoutly sincere prayers, he has been a true partner in the good news. And now he has gone to chase those wild possibilities beyond the horizon to take up ministry in Nerja in Spain. You can Google it the way I had to. But as he and Ruth go off in their retirement to do that, Dietrich Bonhoeffer reminds us that in the Christian community, distance is overcome by the presence of Christ. We can never be closer to one another than through Christ, nor can any distance separate us from one another. Thus we look forward to the new path with confidence, knowing that the same grace that bound us together will sustain us apart. Go with God's blessing, brother. Ve con la benedición de Dios, hermano.
Thank you to Gary. So now we have a tribute to the Reverend Eleanor Hayden, and that will be given by the Reverend Ken Lindsay.
Mr. President, excuse me, Mr. President, members of conference, it's a great honour and a great privilege to have been asked by Eleanor to give this tribute today. I first met Eleanor at the beginning of her first stationed appointment when she came as a probationer to the Pettigo and Irvinstown circuit. And during the 3 years that I was her superintendent, during the following 3 years, I had the privilege of being her superintendent. And the history was that in the 2007 and 2008, there was no full-time worker on this circuit. And I had managed it, as well as the Ballymallard and Trillick circuit, with the help of several retired ministers and local preachers. When stationing came up for the 2008-2009, it was suggested that Eleanor could possibly come to the circuit for 20 hours a week, and I would pick up any gaps that might arise. So, having had the experience of managing the circuit on my own for the previous year, I thought that wasn't too bad a deal. I could manage any gaps that might arise. I never had anything to do from the day she arrived. Everything was done to completion, to fulfillment, and in the finest of details. And the circuit were more than satisfied, I have to say. Now, whether Eleanor worked more than 20 hours, or whether she was hyper-efficient within the 20 hours, or a combination of both, one thing is for sure: Eleanor successfully completed her 3rd year of college, as well as that circuit work. By the way, the stationing committee was faced with the possibility of a similar situation in a later year, but it was decided not to repeat the experiment, not because it didn't work, but the comment was made at the time: not everyone is Eleanor Hayden. And that's true. Eleanor proved to be a great colleague, as well as an extremely competent minister. She is highly organised, and during the 3 years we had at least monthly meetings, and she always came thoroughly prepared, and all that needed to be done was done. Eleanor's journey into ministry was a little unusual. Her husband Gareth had taken early retirement from his previous occupation, and he was approached at the time by the Upper Erne Circuit to serve as a lay evangelist. At that time, he had other ideas that he wanted to explore, and refusing the offer of the appointment, suggested they should consider Eleanor. Neither she nor the circuit had thought of that, but it turned out to be God's way of calling Eleanor into ordained ministry. As she took the post, really enjoyed it, found it fulfilling, leading her to offer as a candidate. During her time there, she had several property issues to attend to, which was great preparation for what lay ahead in Pettigo and Irvinstown. Very shortly after her arrival, and during her last year of study, might say, a new hall was opened in Irvinstown. And later in her time, a complete refurbishment of the Pettigo property was completed, which was made possible largely by Peace 3 funding, which Eleanor had to negotiate. I knew a lot about Eleanor, but in preparation for this tribute, I met her for about half an hour to discuss her particular interests. Top of her list are preaching and pastoral care. But after that, she has served in all areas of the church's life. In the former district system, she was Youth and Children's Secretary, Home Mission Secretary, Property Secretary, convener of the District Pastoral Committee, and District Superintendent at different times. And during her time on the Omagh and Fintona circuit, she has had the duty of supervising 4 probationers on other circuits. And some of those were not terribly near at hand. They involved quite a bit of travelling. Eleanor has been ably supported throughout her ministry by her husband Gareth and her family Philip and Emma. I have mentioned how it was an initial approach to Gareth that got Eleanor on her journey to ordination. Gareth eventually did take up a post as a lay evangelist in the Springfield and Church Circuit Springfield and Churchill circuit, which he found very fulfilling, and later they had the opportunity of serving together on the Omagh and Fintona circuit, something which Gareth told me himself that he would like to do, and something which came to pass eventually. Eleanor's period of ordained ministry has been of medium length, we might say, of 18 years, but it has been very fruitful. I know that all the members of her congregations have benefited greatly from it. Recently, Eleanor kindly invited me to speak at a harvest Thanksgiving service in Omagh. And before the service, she said to me, "This is a wonderful congregation. There are no issues at all. They are totally supportive." I have no doubt that the good people of Omagh are all of those. They are wonderful and they are very committed. But a comment like that can only mean one thing to me. They have been thoroughly served by their minister and are giving back out of a debt of love to her. All her colleagues with whom she has shared in any way, including myself, have been richly blessed and wish Eleanor many happy and healthy years of retirement. Though, as for many of us, I can't see it being without a degree of ministerial engagement.
We hear now a tribute to Reverend Jackie McNair, and it's the Reverend Dr. Richard Wright who will bring the tribute. Thank you, Richard.
Mr. President, members of conference, it's a great privilege to be able to bring this brief tribute to my good friend and colleague, Jackie. Jackie and I were, if you remember, the two extremely mature students at Edge Hill. We founded a new category. You've heard of mature students. We were the extremely mature students just a few years ago. We were old boys before we left. Jackie, because of those mature years, brought a full and very varied life experience to his productive time as a minister. And there are a few things in his life history you may not have known about. He was a part-time footballer at one point. He used to tell me about how he worked as a painter and decorator for a while, and he specialised in doing intricate lettering, so all those Bible verses across the top of a church sanctuary, Jackie was the man who would have painted it. But later on, he studied more and he became an engineer in the textile industry, working in many of the big factories around the Derry, London Derry and Donegal region. His love of people and of relationships led him to become a trade union representative. And he dealt with much of the fallout of the closure of some of the big factories in that region when the textile industry began to implode. He then studied further and became a religious education teacher and ultimately chaplain at Villiers School in Limerick, where he had a long and fruitful time and loved that role. Jackie was brought up partly in the Church of Ireland, and he developed a love of liturgy and of language. He had a strong heart for sharing the gospel with young people. And for many years, he would lead quite ambitious trips to Africa, to Uganda in particular, broadening the perspective of young, inquisitive minds. He brought them all back safely, and they all expanded their horizons as a result of his teaching and leadership. Now, during his time at Edge Hill and on placement at East Belfast Mission, he became a trainer and ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society, and he really pioneered dementia-friendly worship services. I know this because he used to invite his friends to come and assist with some of them, and I had the privilege of witnessing some of those. Jackie was also an accomplished Greek scholar, and I have to say I do not share this skill, and I really appreciated his help and expertise. He used to teach Greek in different settings. And it's a rare skill these days, and one that is highly valued. He was initially stationed as a probationer in Ballynahinch, and Jackie further developed their sense of worship and calling and purpose to their worship. He integrated well in the local community and formed new links that hadn't been found before. And his previous past in football was helpful as he became a chaplain to the local Ballynahinch football team. Now, every man who's married knows that you cannot do any job or any calling without a talented and supportive wife. And Andrea was one of those. She brought many talents to bear, and particularly her musical talents, which greatly enhanced the worship in the Ballynahinch church. After 2 years as a probationer, he and Andrea moved to Ardara, Ballingran, and Christchurch, Limerick. Before, unfortunately, Jackie took early retirement on the grounds of ill health. However, I know that he has retired to the beautiful county of Wexford, close by the sea, and has been recently spotted very active, helping Fadzi in the Gorey church there, and also assisting in the Church of Ireland in that region. I wish both Andrea and Jackie a long and happy retirement. I'm only sorry that that had to terminate a little earlier than planned, and I'm delighted to hear that he is thriving in his new environment. So I give thanks to God for his ministry and for the service of both of them in the short time that he had in the Methodist ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fifth tribute is to the Reverend Dr. Sar Yambasu, and that will be given by the Reverend Dr. John Parkin.
Some years ago, at a conference Bible study, Sar Yambasu identified himself as a citizen of Sierra Leone and a citizen of Ireland. We should add another category to that. It's a citizen of the world. Sar grew up in a traditional polygamous household in Sierra Leone. His father built a physical church in the village where he lived and invited Methodist missionaries to come and share the tenets of the gospel with his people. Sar was trained in the wisdom and traditions of the Kissi people to whom he belongs, and he was the first among the children in his village to receive a Western education. He benefited from a scholarship to come to study in Edge Hill and Queen's University, Belfast. He has a PhD from Queen's University in theology. His thesis examines the interactions between missionaries and those they sought to evangelize. He points out that the missionaries had things to learn from the people amongst whom they lived, as well as vice versa. Sar married Clodagh, a fellow student from Edge Hill College, in 1988. They have 3 now adult children, Fire, Abby, and Sar Jr. They have 4 grandchildren. As a firstborn son of his family, Sar has fulfilled his considerable responsibilities to his wider family in Sierra Leone. those of us who grew up in this part of the world hardly know the responsibilities that entails. It was the intention of Sar and Clodagh to return and serve in Sierra Leone, where Sar was appointed as the principal of the Sierra Leone Theological Hall. That came to a premature end because of the worsening civil war, which tore apart the lives of so many people. The Yambasu family were cast adrift in Ireland as refugees in 1995. Sar refers to this as his second coming to Ireland. He moved from being college principal to being a casual labourer working in a Midlands meat factory. How are the mighty fallen? Sar was eventually given a position in the Wicklow and Arklow circuit as part of the Methodist World Mission Partnership Programme. Then, as a fully fledged Irish minister, he served in the multi-ethnic congregations in Galway and in Waterford. About 5 years ago, he was elected president of our church, and he chose as his theme that inclusive theme of people first before God, reminding us that in the divine census of Psalm 87, enemies, rivals, and foreigners are all counted in as citizens in God's kingdom. He delivered the sermon at the 2021 Ecumenical Service of Reconciliation and Hope in St. Patrick's Cathedral, Armagh. I still remember his opening words, "I bring you good news," as he went on to speak about the challenge of reconciliation, of overcoming slavery, of dealing with attitudes that lead to division. After the sermon, the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom told Sar he felt like applauding, though on that occasion Mr. Johnson exercised uncharacteristic self-restraint. Sar served as the unofficial chaplain to Africans living in Ireland. He was the co-founder of the Africa Centre Ireland and has been an office bearer for Sierra Leone Island Partnership. I remember his opening remarks at the opening of the Africa Centre in which he said, "The complexion of Ireland is changing." Sar has paid a positive contribution to that changing complexion. He lectured in development studies at University College Dublin. He has served on development committees in Ireland and the UK. He has been involved in educational training with people from the United Kingdom and Sierra Leone working together. In his retirement, Sar intends to divide his time between his homeland and Ireland. We wish him Godspeed as he continues to bring good news to both places. To quote Chief Seattle and the hymn writer Fred Pratt Green, "There is one race, the human race. The earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. We are all strands in the web of life." And from Pratt Green, "May we no more defend barriers he came to end. Give me your hand, my friend. Jesus is Lord." So thank you, Sar, for continuing to mediate between Africa and the West. Thank you for walking amongst us in Ireland. Thank you for your sense of humour. Thank you for your resilience. And with the last conversation about how to deal with man's grounds and gardens, talk to Sa about rewilding.
Thank you, John. And I invite my friend, Reverend Harold Agnew, to say something about me.
Well, it is indeed such a privilege and a joy to pay tribute to our President, Alan. Not only as you very soon conclude your term as President, but also as you step into retirement from active ministry. As you know, Alan and I go back a long way. Indeed, it feels in so many ways like a lifetime. We began our training together for the ministry at Edgehill College back in 1989. In those early days, Alan, you were always serving us well, because we remember how many of our fellow students will remember your wee blue, I think it was Metro car, that used to transport us faithfully between Edgehill and Union for lectures and across other parts of Belfast. This was a small but early telling sign of the kind of person Alan has always been, someone who is dependable, generous, and quietly committed to serving others. And from those days to this, our friendship has remained strong. In fact, over the years, Alan has become very much part of my own family and has contributed and been part of many memorable moments and life and milestones. Alan, your ministry has spanned 34 years, serving on 6 circuits across this island of Ireland, north and south. You began in Inishowen in County Donegal, then moved on to Movilla in Newtownards, Dundrum in South Dublin, Glenburn in East Belfast, back down to Dunleary, and finally for the last years of your active ministry in Edenderry and Derry Anvil on the Portadown circuit. In each of those places, Alan, you have served faithfully and diligently as you were sent to those places by this conference. Those of us who have had the privilege of visiting and staying with Alan, especially maybe at conference time, will know that the hospitality that he offered in his manses came with a certain simplicity. There was always often a noticeable absence of full-fat milk or real butter in the fridge. And the food cupboards were, well, let's put it this way, were rarely overflowing. Perhaps that may explain why your figure, Alan, over the years has remained so trim, especially someone like the rest of us have always envied. But what maybe his manses may have lacked in the abundance of provisions, they more than made up in your care and presentation. We've talked a lot about manses this afternoon. Wherever Alan has been stationed, each manse has clearly borne your own signature, always meticulously clean, tastefully decorated, and often filled with the gentle scent of either candles or flowers or potpourri. His attention to detail spoke of your deep respect for all the homes that you have lived in. And that same care extended to the wider properties of the church. Alan, you took a keen interest in improving both churches and manses throughout your ministry. In Newtownards, you acquired a new manse during your time there, and also it was under your ministry that a new sanctuary was built at Movilla. In Glenburn, the church entrance was transformed into a more open and welcoming space. In Dunleary, you not only purchased yet another new manse, but the church also went under a significant refurbishment. And on your final circuit, In Eden Derry, you oversaw not only another major church refurbishment, but just last year, the sale of the old manse and the purchase of a new one. Alan, you left all your places better than you found them. Beyond buildings, however, Alan's greatest investment has always been in people. He has been a faithful preacher and a devoted pastor. His love and care for those he served has never gone unnoticed. I had the privilege of serving with you on the old Craiga and Glenburn circuit, and I was always so blessed to sit under your pulpit ministry, particularly during those evening services that we often shared together. Your preaching has always been thoughtful and passionate, grounded in scriptures and centred on Christ. Alan, your ministry also extended beyond local church situations. During your time in Glenburn, you served in prison chaplaincy at Hydebank Wood, ministering amongst young offenders and the women in that prison environment. In other appointments, you made significant contributions to hospital chaplaincy. Over many years, as many of you will know in this conference, you were also deeply involved with the Walk to Emmaus that brought great blessing to so many, encouraging people into the way of discipleship. In addition to this, Alan, you've given a lot of your time and gifts generously to the wider church through the various connectional committees and roles in which you've served. Your election as President-designate of the conference in June 2024 came as no surprise to any who knows you. Over this past year, your leadership has been exemplary, marked by humility, a clarity, and also a purpose. You've continually encouraged the church, as you've reminded us already today, to be compelled and committed to the task of sharing the good news of Jesus with others. For this lies at the very heart of your ministry, Alan, this deep desire to present Jesus to others in the power of the Holy Spirit. As you've already said today, that mantra that you've carried right across Ireland, people need the Lord. And so, Mr. President, Alan, as you stand down from active ministry and enter this new chapter, you do so with gratitude for all that you have given us. And though we speak of retirement, we already know, borrowing Bishop Ken Clark's phrase, that you will in fact be refired as you take up a part-time appointment in Glastonbury and Portaferry from September. I just want to say that on behalf of myself, on behalf of your colleagues, your many friends, and also the many people whose lives you have touched throughout your ministry, we just want to say thank you. And we want to wish you a long, healthy, and fruitful retirement that will be filled with continued opportunities to serve, to encourage, and above all, to share the love of Christ. Thank you, Alan.
Mr. President, with your permission, I will lead through the resolutions, as your name is one of those which is before us. So first of all, to say thank you to those who have brought tributes, and thank you to all of those to whom tributes were brought. Your ministry and service among us and far beyond us is profoundly appreciated, and we applaud you. As we move through these resolutions, sir, each district superintendent will bring the proposals, and we'll ask them just to follow on and approve them with one standing vote at the end. So if I could ask Dr. Alderdice to begin.
Madam Secretary, I propose that the Reverend Sharon Connor be given permission to retire. Madam Secretary, I propose that the Reverend Alan Craig be given permission to retire.
Madam Secretary, I propose that Reverend Eleanor Hayden be given permission to retire.
Madam Secretary, I propose that the Reverend Jackie McNair be given permission to retire. I propose that the Reverend Dr. Sar Yambasu be given permission to retire.
Madam Secretary, I propose that Reverend Alan Wardlow be given permission to retire.
Conference, those names are before us, and if you're minded to approve, I ask that you do that by standing. And as we do that, could we please applaud our sisters and brothers? Mr. Assistant Secretary.
Mr. President, I move that the tributes printed